Hello, everyone from Austin, Texas, the Texas Tribune Festival. We are mighty privileged to be here with none other than Congressman Jamie Raskin, the representative from the 8th District of Maryland since 2017, and of course, the magnificent orator and leader of the second impeachment charge. I wanted to ask you about not the January 6th committee, which I know you're fielding left and right. I actually wanted to ask you, because I know you've had some thoughts about it, about the both legally and if you have political thoughts, the Lindsay Graham bill he's introduced that seemed to land with a thud to make a national floor of 15 weeks below which no state could go. Do you have any thoughts about how that plays politically? But also I want to call on your old role as a constitutional law professor and ask if you think that flies.
First of all, it's not clear why we would have constitutional power to ban abortion. What is the constitutional authority for that?
It's got to be Commerce Clause, right? I haven't seen the bill, but
Yeah, but then you could ban people going interstate. But it's not clear that abortions in Texas have a substantial effect on interstate commerce. So that's one issue constitutionally. But look, all of these efforts to derive some great national solution just remind me so much of everything that took place before the Civil War. I mean, Lincoln was right that the nation could not last half slave, half free. I don't think we're going to be able to last half free choice, half theocrat. I just don't see it. And a house divided cannot stand, as Lincoln said. So the vast majority of the American people reject authoritarian policies that try to restrict women's choices over their own families, their own health care, their own careers, and their own lives. And the people of Kansas proved that definitively, because it was not just a 20-point repudiation of right-wing anti-abortion politics, the kind that has taken over the Republican Party, but it showed massive turnout. So it showed not only do people reject their view, but they're willing to come to the polls in unusual numbers to reject their views. So I think that the tide is beginning to turn in the country against what Donald Trump has done to the Republican Party and against what the Republican Party is doing to America.
Let me stay with you with the history, which I know is a hobby horse. So I think the House divided speech is 1840, and it does seem that those 25 years were a national tumult. You wouldn't think that abortion and Trump could have that much purchase, but it's often seemed to me that we are in times analogous to the Reconstruction period. What's your sense of the best sort of historical analogy to the strange days we find ourselves in since 2016?
I mean, I haven't thoroughly dissected the analogy between that period and this period, but I will say that the Confederate states, or the pre-Confederate states, drove a very hard bargain because they were convinced that what was actually a matter of human freedom was a matter of states' rights. And that, of course, is the language today. The vast majority of Americans believe this is just a question of individual freedom, and they think it's a question of the power of state legislatures like the Texas legislature or the Alabama legislature or the Florida legislature to control women's lives. And that was the exact same determination that the pre-Confederate states had and the Confederate states had. So I don't know where this is going. I do know that if the Democrats control the House and the Senate and the White House, we are going to pass a federal law to codify Roe versus Wade. And
pursuant to what power, since we're asking?
Pursuant to our power to protect the right of free choice under equal protection.
So Section 5 of the 14th Amendment.
And under due process. And presumably we'll build in Commerce Clause jurisdictional authority as well. There might be some other ones I'm not thinking of. I mean, there are other due process and First Amendment rights in the Constitution. So if they were to take control, of the House and the Senate and the White House, they undoubtedly will pass a nationwide abortion restriction. And it'll probably be far more severe than the one that Lindsey Graham tried to do. Lindsey Graham was trying to help out all of those Republican candidates across the country who are tumbling in the polls and whose campaigns are faltering because the women of America, and for that matter, the men of America, reject that kind of authoritarian, theocratic policy. So he was trying to say, oh, well, let's draw the line at 15 weeks so it sounds
So
more
reasonable.
reasonable, thinking that that somehow might put an end to it. But after decades of them saying that abortion is murder and life begins at conception, the anti-abortion forces have a lot more power than that. And they are trying to go all the way. And you can understand where they're coming from because the Republican Party has sold them a bill of goods for all these decades. They said, yeah, we're totally with you. We think abortion is murder in all cases. We're against exceptions for rape and incest. And now they're backpedaling. The cat has got their tongue. They don't really want to talk about it. And so Lindsey Graham says, oh, well, this is just a basic floor of anti-abortion legislation. You can go further in your states. And so that means they've got the pro-choice majority against them, and you've got the right-wing theocratic minority saying, why is Lindsey Graham giving anybody an escape hatch here?
Or a uniform solution. Just sticking with the analogy for a moment, it's kind of like Kansas, Nebraska. Again, this is sold in the opinion as a way to return sovereignty to the states, and it's, you blink your eye and they're looking for a uniform national solution.
Isn't it interesting, by the way, that the same forces that want to return the power of the states want to strip the power of the states to regulate guns according to their interests and instead nationalize that with their extremist and totally phony insurrectionist theory of the Second Amendment?
Yes, it is. I think you've detected a very good inconsistency. I would be remiss to all followers of Talking Feds if I just didn't thank you for your magnificent work trying to preserve the rule of law and the Constitution over the last few years. Thanks so much on a busy day for spending a few minutes with us.
Harry, the pleasure is mine, and thank you for the great work you're doing upholding our constitutional values.